Gilliam, at the Matera Film Festival 2 years ago, you were here too. How is your way back to Matera? You like the city, and what's your impressions?
I mean, it's a very seductive city, is what Matera is, because it's a different world. It is so different from the world of London, and it's primitive on one level, but it's also brilliant. The architecture is extraordinary, from the most basic to the great palaces like we're in now. It's amazing. It is dreamlike. And it was this morning when I woke up, because I was still half asleep, and suddenly I stepped into the magical world of Matera, and I was lost for a moment. It was great.
You want to direct another movie, the noir defective detective, that is really astonishing, as we can imagine. How do you imagine this movie that you wrote, that you imagined, that you will shoot? When?
Well, it was a script that Richard LeGravenese, who wrote The Fisher King, he and I wrote this script 30 years ago. And it's always been a thing I wanted to make, but it's owned by Paramount. They paid us, I think, $12,000 to write this, and it's been in the belly of the beast for 30 years. I've tried to rescue it, but not able to, because they say the interest rate on the 12,000 will be worth millions and millions of dollars. So I'm more interested in trying to get Paramount, now that they've got a new owner in David Ellison, to try to get them to make the film, because it's theirs. They actually own it. So rather than trying to remove it and make it somewhere else, I want them to get interested. So we'll see.
What do you think of this era dominated by the politically correct? For you, that destroyed the politically correct with the Python before, and then with Brazil, and with all your personal movies.
I think it's been a very sad few years, because I've been canceled twice already. I remember when it began, my daughters were saying something I'd said, "Oh, that's very rude." I said, "Yeah, it's rude, but it's not offensive. It's not horrible." But that was the beginning of political correctness. And then it grew and grew until it became neo-Calvinist. And it's rigid. And people, the activists, they see the world in this narrow view. And what I find ironic is they're supposed to be what is the word? Now this is the moment. This is when Trump needs to sue, and what is non-binary? They're fighting for a non-binary gender system, but they are completely the most binary people in the world. They are black or white. There's no gray, and that is binary. So that's the irony of the activists. So they've made a lot of noise, and what has intrigued me is the adults have been bowing to the children. It was like the Chinese Cultural Revolution, when children were saying, "My parents said this about Mao," and the parents were taken off to prison. It was the same thing. It was like a children's crusade, and the adults were all frightened. And that's what has happened the last couple of years.
If you had to rely to make a new movie about a dystopic future, what kind of story would you like to tell? And which world are you imagining for a new dystopic world?
No, it's the problem. I don't know exactly, because when I made my dystopic future, 40 years ago with Brazil, nobody realized the future would be like that, but it is like that now. So it's very hard to do something better than that. I don't know what the future is, and that's why in my Carnival at the End of Days project I decided God decides to destroy humanity. Because I don't know, even God doesn't know where it's going. So we'll start again. Let's see. We want the world to be the world. I mean, the globe, the earth, is such a precious object, and we are making a mess of it. But it's possible that because we've always been very clever, and that's why I was saying Matera, look what was done from some cave dwellers. They got a bit smarter. They got a bit more intelligent. They got more creative, and they created this incredible town. So maybe there is hope for humanity. Even Bill Gates has changed his mind about climate change. He says it's about, keeping people alive because people are clever. And maybe with enough people still alive being smart enough, we will solve the problems that we have made. Speriamo.
One of your movies was shot mostly in Italy. It was the Baron of Munchausen. What do you remember of those days in Cinecittà and those days in Italy with that cast and that wonderful scenography that you created?
I remember chaos. It was a very strange and difficult time because we had $23.5 million from the studios. But the producer we had was a German with great ambitions. He believed in Napoleon, Alexander the Great, and Dino De Laurentiis. So he said, we're going to make this film. The first budget we had was $50 million. We had raised 23.5. So that accountant was fired. Then we hired a new one, 40 million. We kept eventually till he found an accountant who agreed with the money we had. Now, I had storyboarded the whole film, and it was very much more ambitious than the film we made. And there was this complete separation between the idea, the dream of the movie, and the reality of what was available. So it became very, very complex. The great thing was the crew was Italian, and that's what made it wonderful. Dante Ferretti, Gabriella Vescucci. It was just a wonderful experience working with them and working at Cinecittà. Cinecittà was like a dream to work at. It was just beautiful. You arrive in the morning and there's the pine trees with the sun coming through. Wow, this is good fun. And everything that was going on was in many ways a disaster, but the final product is brilliant. And I finally watched it a couple of years ago when we were making a 4K version. First time I'd seen it in 20 years. And I said, this is a great movie. I was completely separate from the making of the movie. And I think it still is. I think it's a great, wonderful movie, a great cast, and brilliant to look at, and funny, and smart. And it's everything that I wanted to make as far as movies were concerned.
Last question about, you were speaking about Thailand.
Yeah.
It is maybe your favorite own movie. Why is that? And why do you think maybe your fans think that is a less Gilliam movie?
Thailand is about a little 9-year-old girl. And people are always worried about little 9-year-old girls to protect them. And we put her in a situation that is very difficult. Her father is a junkie. She helps prepare his heroin for him. And he dies very quickly in the film. And now she's stuck in a little house in the middle of nowhere with a dead father. How is she going to survive? And she does. And that's what's interesting about it. But for a lot of people, it's disturbing because we're worried the whole time. And my feeling was that she was actually the smartest person in the whole film, and she survives. And it was from a book. And the minute I read the story, I just said, this is beautiful. It's true about a child. And a lot of people still want to think children are sweet little innocent creatures that must be protected. And I think children are much stronger than that.